Good morning, Michelle, and thank you for having us indeed. It has got us nowhere because the Department of Public Service and Administration, as the lead department for negotiations, has not been able to table any new money in response to our demands. And in actual fact, we've been negotiating for more than 42 days, and we only have now at least 5 working days for the government to revise its offer. And if not, then we are going to be the unions declaring a formal dispute, which would lead to a conciliation, which means basically that there will be disruptions of public service for the working class people, the poor, who are relying solely on the public services in terms of health, in terms of education, and many other services that we offer, because government has not factored in the budget that has been approved this year any increases. You would remember that public servants did not receive any increase in 2020. The matter is still at the constitutional court. So yeah, therefore we are seated with a situation where our members are very, very, very angry, and they are really calling upon us to say we're wasting time in these particular negotiations because we are milking a bull that is not going to give us any milk.
Yeah, I mean, it was in the 2021 budget, wasn't it, Mugwena, that the Treasury said, you know, ways to curb the wage bill accounting for a large portion of GDP, and one of those ways would have been to freeze salary increases for public servants over the next 3 years. Take us back to what unfolded after that announcement from Treasury back in February.
Yes, basically what the Treasury did was to make that particular announcement without any consultation. We believe that in this country we have got these particular democratic platforms where we are supposed to be presented with accurate information about the financial situation and therefore be able to then look at alternatives. So since that time, the government has not gone back to really revise, even in terms of an appropriation bill that would then say, look, this is what we are putting on place. What they are doing now is to steal from the workers by saying they will freeze again what we call PMDS, as well as the pay progression and any other allowance or the bonuses that the people are entitled to in terms of their condition of services, in order for them to be able to get the money to give the cash bonuses to workers. And we find that very insensitive. We find that very irrational for the government to do that. You cannot have not any, at least amount that you can be able to put on the table to negotiate and say to the workers there, can you make some permutation, some scenarios of how we can be able to implement what we have in the coffers for now, but you cannot have alone taking a decision about retrenchment, about freezing the salaries without consultation. It is not allowed in terms of the law in this country.
So take us through the demands that workers have on the table. It's a slightly above inflation wage increase, about 4% of all workers, better housing, risk allowances as well. And also, you know, Mugwena, as you answer that question, give us a sense again of how important these increases are in an environment where public sector workers have stayed working throughout the past year of the ongoing pandemic.
Yes, when you look at the human side of issues, is that you have essential services where people have been working throughout in public health, and therefore they were in the front line of this particular virus. And then the government comes in 2020 when everybody was expecting that, look, you will say thank you to the workers who have been able to help us to go through a very difficult situation where we did not know about this particular virus. So when we are asking for a 4% above the inflation, is an opening demand, which is negotiable, and therefore what we expect a reasonable government or an employer is to come and say, look, here is my offer, can you take it back to the workers and consult them? Secondly, it is that we have the lowest subsidy in terms of housing, and in terms of the salaries of the public servants that are here, they are not able to get mortgage bonds on the basis of their salaries, and therefore we're saying over and above 1,300, please increase this to 2,500 and so forth. So you're talking about, frontline workers who are there to protect and help our patients to be able to be released when they've been admitted, whether it's COVID, whether it's any other chronic diseases. You're talking about the teachers who have got to ensure that we have an economic recovery by giving the skills and the competencies we need to be able to deal with the devastation of COVID. And therefore, those are the people you are saying, 2020, we don't give you anything, and therefore come 2021, we still not give you anything. Yeah. I don't think the government is ready to really listen unless we go to the strike.
Well, is that the next step now? I know that you've said that you need to still be in consultation with your members, but given what you've just said, and given that you have now declared that we're at the stage of a deadlock in these negotiations, is a strike the next step?
Yes, what's going to happen is that after 5 days, we are allowed by the law to declare a formal dispute, which will be conciliated and give us a stifficate. And the stifficate means that we will have a protected strike for 1.2 million workers in the country. And that means the disruption of very critical services to the people of our country, because the government has declared the strike, and therefore we are going to come back with a very, very harsh strike against the government.
Well, Mugwena, given what you've said about the important work that our essential workers do, teachers, healthcare workers, frontline workers, to name a few, this strike must be a last resort for you. It surely can't be an easy decision to take in the midst of a pandemic.
It's not easy to take that, because all the time what the workers are doing in the public service is to put the people first. And hence, that's why they've been working throughout, putting our people first, putting our country first. And therefore, you expect that you will have a very sensitive and very considerate employer who will also be able to say, let me also, you extend my hand, and so that we are then able to avert a strike. So it is going to be a very harsh strike in the midst of this particular pandemic, and therefore we believe that maybe the government will sit and be able to be sensible and be rational and be able to come back to us before we can see the disruptions of services. It is not going to be good.
Yeah.